You're welcome. Yeah, here's the one we set out. But
Yeah, I got that one.
But normally I would go top by on the map. And then this redevelopment code is what we refer to as
You know, do the confectionery sugar over there, one of those like
Oh, I know.
and I'd get
All
up and I'd
over.
be like,
these two guys
did
right
I
here.
do that? Let's go. So, just so you know,
I think I see what you I was waiting on that one now. I think I was just waiting on the VA, the veteran one, but I think it did.
so their engineers meeting was last night.
Not say no to us, you try to convince them.
So I met Kate
they will, then I'll
across
help.
America too, so it was nice to put a name in the
Yeah.
face that she was there.
Okay.
So I didn't.
We're gonna get started in just about 1 minute, okay?
So I was like, I was saying, how to make that be.
Oh, wow. Robin's?
Yeah, I was like, hey, I guess I got what I asked for.
Your box is actually not square. It's a little bit. There's a little room over here. Like, oh, great idea.
Wow, this is great. Where is everybody?
Yeah, we have a mimosa at brunch right now. No.
Who are we missing? We're missing 2 from our board.
Directors, right? I mean, the directors.
Webster, the reason I got into Webster was
I know we have a problem smiling, don't we? I like to think that everything put it out to some people, but
Okay, if we can all take a seat, and in just a second or two, we're going to start. Yeah, over here instead of there. Okay, well, welcome. I've been asked to kick this off, and thank you so much, Tim, for putting this together. This is historic, really, because this is the first time I think the committees have all been in one room together at one time. And so there should be a very lively conversation. As a matter of fact, what was the line that you gave me?
Authentic conversation.
That's right, authentic conversation. So I'm talking to everybody back there too. This is probably the most important meeting that we're going to have. And you say, important meeting we're going to have when? Forever. This meeting and what comes out of this meeting determines what Groveland's going to be when it grows up. This is for your grandchildren, your children. This is what we're doing here today really means a lot for everybody that follows. This is your legacy, all of you's legacy, as we move forward. So please, authentic conversation is a great line. Do not be shy. Because if you're shy and you think about something and don't bring it up, it could have repercussions down the road. And I guarantee if you're thinking of something, 10 other people are thinking of the same thing and not getting up and saying anything. So it's kind of a free flow day. Tim is running it. We have some great people over here. I'm sure many of you have been to the different presentations so far. but I'm going to ask Carla to come up in just a second, who's the leader. But first, Tim, you put this together. You've been through all these. Do you want to say just a few words to the group, because this is your baby here?
That's a lot to live up to in terms of the most important meeting ever, Mr. Mayor. But we're off to a good start, I would say. My name is Tim Maslow. For those who don't know me, I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development here at the City of Groveland. Been here since back in 2019. It is a pivotal moment. We've seen a lot of growth here in Groveland. One of the reasons why we asked you to be here is we have a comprehensive plan for the city. And I know we have some folks here from the Strategic Planning Committee. Some of you might be asking the question, what's the difference, Tim, with all these different plans that are going on, right? So I like how Mr. Brett Jones from our Strategic Planning Committee actually brought it up the other day. So the strategic plan is kind of like the higher level view for the city. It's, think 10 pages or less, where the comprehensive plan expands or should expand on that strategic plan and literally gives you hundreds of pages of detail. We're here to talk specifically about the comprehensive plan. And this year, really the focus of what we're trying to do in the Planning Division and Community and Economic Development Department is trying to make sure that all these plans align with each other. They all speak to each other. The comprehensive plan should be enforcing what the city wants to do on a much higher level with our strategic plan. We also have a land development code that should be doing what the comprehensive plan, strategic plan are telling it to do. So you're going to hear from Carla today, representing Will Dan, the consultant team. They've been working with us the last few months, hearing staff feedback. They probably had one-on-one conversations with a lot of you all. They're hearing from the general public. This is our third public meeting. Anyone from the public who set aside time to come out here today, we appreciate you making that sacrifice in your schedule and being a part of this project. We call this your plan, your voice, your plan, right? We want to make sure that our plan and all of our efforts here at the city are serving our residents and they speak to the values of our community. Before Carla presents, I think it might be a good idea just for everybody to go around quickly and just maybe state their name and if they're on an advisory board team.
Yeah, let's do that.
Mention what that.
Let me just build on what you're saying, because this comp plan is very important, but along with the comp plan is something called the concurrency plan, right? And the concurrency plan is very, very important because that says if we grow this much, we need this much infrastructure. If we grow this much, we need this many police officers. Or if we grow this much, we need this much. It's all lined up right here. We need this much recreational space. We need this much of everything. So how many of us have sat around and said, man, this place is growing too fast and we don't have the roads and we don't have the schools and we don't have all these different things? Well, this is our chance to put the concurrency plan and the comp plan together so that we all are much more satisfied with the way things are going in the future. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So it's very, very close. So with that, I'll start with Vice Mayor, and we'll go around and introduce ourselves and who you're representing today.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Gaines, Vice Mayor Groveland.
David Bergstein, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Hold it, excuse me. My fault. I did not put the ground rules down. We have to talk into the mic so this is recorded and it's streamed so that people can hear what you're saying. So there's a mic there, there's a mic. I have the mic for over here, and there's a mic right there. So please try to use the mics.
I'm Kim Jemison. I have Kimmy's Flowers, and I'm on the Strategic Planning Committee.
Good morning. My name is Brett Jones, and I'm on the Strategic Planning Committee.
Good morning. Christina Tremaine, representing the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee, Dr. Tony McCoy.
Good morning. Alicia Kissy Garcia with the Planning and Zoning.
Robin Hoover, Planning and Zoning.
Stephen Sholkovsky, City Council, District 2.
Zach Decker, Chairman for the Planning and Zoning Committee.
Very good. Thank you all for being here. And now it's my honor to introduce Carla Effenbach, who has really put in her team right here, and I'm sure she'll introduce, but take it away.
Are we on? Yes. Thank you, Mayor, for that introduction, and thank you, Tim, for that great context to the project and what's bringing us all here today. Welcome everyone who has attended from the public, from these different boards and committees. It's just wonderful to see such a great turnout. My name is Carla Ebenbach, and I'm the project manager for this evaluation and appraisal review, which is the technical term for what we're doing. And our prime consultant is Will Dan, and some of my teammates are here from the consultant team. We have Chris Brown from Redevelopment Management Associates, and we have Sharon McCormick, also from Redevelopment Management Associates, and Sal Lopez from Wildan. So we are a larger team than this, but the four of us are here to answer your questions when we get to that part. We are. Let's see, let's move on here. So a lot of the context was covered very well by Tim, but basically we are now in the process of, hello. The city is in a public process to update its comprehensive plan. And that process to update is called the Evaluation and Appraisal Review, or EAR, as we call it for short. And it's an opportunity to re-examine the policies that are in place and which direct how the city grows, how it invests, and how it conserves what it has. And we kind of likened this to growing crops on a farm. I mean, the plan is kind of the field that we're sowing, if you will, and the elements, which are the chapters of the comprehensive plan, there on the left, are crops. And the policies, which are within those chapters, are going to produce a yield for us. And the yield is how the outcomes present themselves in the city over time from the policies that we establish with this plan. And the comprehensive plan, by statutory requirement, is to have a 10 to 20 year time frame. So that's another thing that distinguishes it from the strategic plan, which we are aligning with. So the plan for today is to have a quick presentation here with the findings that we've had to date in this project. And then the more important part is we're going to move on to a facilitated discussion with the members of these committees who are here and the members of the council to get your feedback on what you're hearing about the process to date and what some of the key priorities are that you'd like us to pay attention to as we go forward. After that, we have some stations set up here with boards where you're welcome to the public also come and interact with the staff and with our project team members, ask questions, give your feedback, and we will take down everything that we hear. So why are we here? Well, to inform, to make sure that all of these appointed and elected leaders here present at the table are well informed on what's happening in this project, to use your input to fine-tune our priorities, and to collect ideas from you, essentially. Any model communities you'd like us to look at, any opportunities that you'd like us to explore. So here's just a quick review of the timeline of our project. We're kind of in the middle of it now. We've just finished phase 2. We're entering into what will be a little bit more of a labor-intensive data inventory and analysis, but we've just completed some very useful community events, and this is another one of those. And we aim to transmit final recommended amendments to the state by the middle of April. So there will be a public review process which will start occurring in the new year. So just to cover in a couple slides these community events that we had in October. We had an event at Lake David Center and then also at Cherry Lake Charter School. And the public events collected input in a variety of ways. We wanted to make it possible for people to share either through the Q&A or by visiting our stations that we had around the room and supply their comments on Post-it notes, just in conversation with the many staff members and consultants that were on hand to talk with the public. We also had a suggestion box, and we also promoted our survey, which I will talk about next. Oh, but I just want to mention that culling through all of that feedback, these 5 bullet points are the main takeaways that we had from those community events, the things that we heard the most from residents. Top concern being traffic and circulation, the availability and diversity of housing types, especially affordable housing, commercial, recreational, and park resources in the community, the capacity and the quality of the water systems and other infrastructure, and the protection of Groveland's valued natural landscapes. So we have an ongoing public survey, which is live now, and we're still collecting and will collect for some time now input via the survey. It's available in English and Spanish, and actually as of today we have 65 responses, I believe. And so the returns are early on this, but they do also show some similar ideas. Very strong call for an attractive and walkable downtown in Groveland. Preservation of the small town feel of Groveland. More affordable housing, retail and entertainment uses. And a lot of this parallels what we heard at the live events. And residents have so far expressed their greatest dissatisfaction with traffic congestion. Like, hands down, that's like the biggest. And lack of developer contributions to what we call community benefits, helping to pay for the things that support the community as a whole. Economic development issues, bringing certain economic generators to town. The loss of rural character due to development, and water quality and stormwater management. And I'll circle back to the survey because we're going to want to ask you as ambassadors to push this out and make sure that we get a lot more of a cross-section of the city before we're done. We'd really like to hear from as many people as possible on this survey. So just a quick snapshot based on 2020 data about the city. The city, as you know, is growing very quickly, about 6.27% annually since 2020. And with rapid growth, there are implications for the quality of life in the city, the consumption of the resources that a community requires, the need for infrastructure, and we're going to be focusing on that a lot today. And it's really important because what we build today, or in the next 10 to 20 years, will be with us for a long time, so it really does matter. So I'll get now into the substance of those different elements of the comprehensive plan, sort of the chapters, if you will, or the crops that I referred to. These are our crops. We want to get a good yield from the policies that we put in them. And the good news is that we have wonderful new expertise on staff. Within the last 5 years, there's just been a real ramping up of capabilities and best practices within the city's planning department. There is a new future land use element that was adopted, and these bode well for directing the city going forward. And the question is, how can we channel that even further? How can we get the best yield from those policies that we're going to be updating? Groveland is already working on concurrency, which the mayor brought up, which is an important subject. Already working on some innovative planning and zoning practices, including something called transect-based planning and zoning, which looks at the appropriateness of certain kinds of development at certain stages out from the center. The city is also looking at different housing types and is now allowing a variety of housing types that it did not before, which should broaden the ability to create more affordable housing and more innovative housing. There's also a planning agreement regionally, the joint planning agreement, which is really beneficial to the city. And I'd say that my observation in talking with all the city leaders in my recent interviews is that the city is moving towards fully considering concurrency, is already starting to utilize tools like impact fees for some items to engage the growth itself that's occurring in paying for the total outcome for the community. Level of service is another concept that comes up with the comprehensive plan, and it has to do with the quantitative and the qualitative performance of your comp plan and of your different forms of infrastructure and services. So it applies to everything from roads to water and sewer to parks. You can talk about the level of service. How well is this form of infrastructure serving the community? And there are ways to measure that. And as you can see up on the screen, there are some benefits to using a level of service framework in your planning. And that includes, addressing community needs, making investments strategically that make sense, being financially sustainable, and creating greater accountability for what you're doing. The city must, if it adheres to it, then it is abiding by what has been commonly agreed upon as important. So back to housing. There is a strong community concern for addressing housing needs, particularly on the affordable end of the spectrum, and that's for good reason. The community is growing very fast, and when market forces are the only thing driving it, which is not the case in Groveland, you have a lot of pressure against the affordability of housing. And we just heard, I think yesterday, about the loss of Kroger, or the coming loss of Kroger as an employer in the city. So, the affordability of housing can be exacerbated by things like that, and it's the good time to be mindful. So the city has already proactively addressed some of these issues in a very thoughtful way by having a missing middle component to its transect zones. It's looking at different housing types, as you can see up there, cottages, duplexes, live-work units, townhomes, providing gentle density in this somewhat rural area and neighborhood diversity without needing to go to large apartment blocks and that kind of thing. Allowing accessory dwelling units, which is a little unit in the rear yard of a property, which also kind of very gently creates another housing opportunity in a community. And I understand that Groveland may have the county's first affordable housing land trust, so that's pretty exciting stuff. Other innovations include not having a minimum housing size requirement, so making it possible to build smaller, and also including requirements for housing diversity. So the Community Development Code has been already updated to address many of these housing concerns. So moving on to sort of another substantive area, transportation and connectivity. Big ticket item in the community, not something that people are very happy about at the moment. Of course, to that end, many aspects are out of the city's control since some of the roads are governed by FDOT or the county. Excuse me. a lot of feedback about that, and also a lot about the need for connectivity, like the connection between neighborhoods, the connection between point A and point B. How do you get there actually without your car? Are there ways to walk through Groveland, bike through Groveland? And I know there's some efforts that are addressing this now. And it stands to reason that it might be a little difficult to accomplish some things given that the roadways, some of the roadways are under state control or the county. But we have to think about what is within reach for us, and also how can we leverage what is possible. For example, there have been concerns expressed about the safety of people walking on the side of the road to get from one place to another, groups of teenagers, et cetera. And there's a public safety issue there, and there's opportunity with the state to pursue perhaps some funding to support some help creating at least, maybe gravel trails or something that moves towards a pathway for people who are walking. So at this point, I'm going to throw out some examples to you from elsewhere. And since I have often worked in Southeast Florida, my examples are going to come from there. But I do want to say that part of what I would love to hear from you today when we get to the talking discussion part is what examples should we look at that you know of that might be a little closer to home here? What are some communities that you feel are doing well in some of these areas? And we will take notes and we will examine them. But just for illustrative purposes, I've included the city of Opelika here for the transportation. It shows, I'm so sorry. It shows how, in the comprehensive plan, they establish a level of service for their roadways, and they are accountable for trying to maintain those. They have a level of service not only for their roadways, but they have for pedestrian ways and also bikeways. So we will be studying other examples and trying to bring best practices to Groveland, and that's why we really want to have that discussion about who's doing it well. Oh, thank you. I now have a throat lozenge, which is a good idea. Another area of great importance to touch on is utilities and water conservation. There was some concern from the public and from the many leaders that we spoke to on the city staff about the capacity of systems, particularly water distribution, in keeping up with new development. When an entitlement for a new development is made, a commitment is made, for example, to give water to that new development. And the various facilities today are close to getting to capacity. There are plans to expand, but all that's somewhat invisible, but it is a very real constraint to what can be done in the city. There also is some inefficiencies, leaks. We all could be using much more efficient fixtures, that kind of thing. It may well be kind of a linchpin that focuses our attention on how to manage growth and maintain a reasonable level of service for all. And not all the examples are from Opelika, but this next one happens to be. It just shows you how they go about setting level of service for their sanitary sewer, for their fire flow, for solid waste, drainage, potable water, et cetera. So we can learn from these other examples. Also on utilities, the village of Palmetto Bay, which is down in Dade County as well, just similar examples. I won't really dwell on it, but there are many examples to look at. On water conservation, I like to point to the city of North Miami, where I worked on the comprehensive plan and am now working on the land development regulations updates. Really strong emphasis on conservation there and environmental policies, and they in fact have a whole load of different things in their comp plan about xeriscaping, a leak detection program, meter testing, training and education, programs in the schools, fixture exchanges, et cetera, et cetera. And they have a lot of very meaningful performance metrics, which is another another aspect that can be incorporated into a comp plan. How will we know if we're doing well? And picking those performance metrics is not easy, but if you think about it carefully, what do you really want to know about how well it's working? And then it's just common sense. Another area of great importance to many community members is parks, the availability and the accessibility of parks. So back in Groveland, it's a policy topic. Yes, we want to talk about it as level of service. How much parkland is available to every resident, and how easily can they get to that parkland? And, you know, there's a question, should developers contribute to the creation of parks, or should they be required to create parks? It's something that is in discussion now. We'll talk about it more. The example is from Opelika again. It talks about how they measure level of service for parks, both by a certain amount of park space per resident, so 1.8 acres of park space for every 1,000 persons, theirs is, but they also measure it in geographic distance, so 1 acre of recreation and open space within a 10-minute walking radius, or a half mile of all residential mixed-use areas. So back to Groveland again. One of the wonderful things about Groveland, which was one of the first things to discover coming here, is how beautiful it is. The lakes, the beautiful dark skies, the resources that you have here are tremendous compared to almost anywhere else in Florida. And how do we keep that? How do we protect it? Development can help or harm that, depending how we do it. And so the question is, how do we permanently protect the natural resources? There's a very admirable goal to conserve 50% of land in Groveland, and I think that's amazing, and the city is getting close. The question is, what more could we do? Because the interconnected systems of water and air and habitats, they once lost, it's a little bit hard to regain. So policies can touch on how to do that, how to track it, how to monitor it. Again, the example is from North Miami again. Again, very strong on conservation. They also have their own climate change element, et cetera. They have policies that range from regulating fertilizer use. This is just a sampling. Tree canopy, native plants, requiring an environmental quality assessment of certain resources, and ranging all the way to green building practices with public projects. And the greener a building is, the smaller a footprint it has on the landscape. Another important area here in Groveland is how to prioritize capital investments. We did a fun little game at the community events. We had kind of like a monopoly board with play money, and we asked the residents who came by the station to put their money where they most wanted to spend it. So we had the different categories of infrastructure or investments that could be made with public money, which is limited. And they only got 5 bills, and they had to decide where to put them among, I guess it was 16 or 18 choices. And we got a little bit of a straw poll on, how those people felt about where to put the money. And we heard a lot about environmental projects, utility infrastructure, and public and recreational facilities. So that's what came back from those events, and we will continue to collect that kind of feedback, and including here today from you. I am including a question here, how can the city even better or even more require developers to fairly share the cost of the growth that they're bringing and benefiting from here in the city? And how can we influence the pace and the quality of the built results? So these are important questions at this juncture. We're almost to the point where we're going to turn to our facilitated questions. Oh, Wait, I still have this one. The management of the growth in the city largely occurs in the public process of development review, and any fees or programs that developments are asked to participate in. Of course, that is something that is desirable without turning away development. So it's a balance that depends a little bit on market pressure, but the city establishes a framework which is important and guides development. And I wanted to ask you, of course, and we'll get to this, where have you seen development review interventions that worked well, or impact fees that were used well to manage growth? This is something we should be studying right now. And I'm going to show you a couple examples where I've worked, where I think they're working to create things like this so that we grow responsibly, and by responsibly I mean planning for not only today but future generations. What's going to be the legacy of this policy document, of the regulations that stem from it? So these two examples on the left is it's only in draft form now because it's on hold at the moment to go through the public review process, but it's a set of resilient development standards in Pompano Beach, where for major development, proposers are given a menu of 50 options, ways to green their projects in the ways that are most important to the city, everything from flood resilience to energy, alternative energy, to creating tree canopy, all sorts of different things. And that is part of the development review process. That's a way of influencing the outcome of the development review process. And in West Palm Beach, this is was a zoning code update for the Broadway mixed-use district, which has some economic development challenges, and it was used to leverage new development to either acquire monies or have developments include provisions to retain legacy businesses in their developments along the corridor. This is the US 1 corridor in West Palm Beach, a section of it. Or to provide affordable housing, and the developer would get certain benefits if they included those things. And that works in a city like West Palm Beach. It's not necessarily what works here, but I just throw these out to show you that there are tools, tricks and tools of the trade that we can bring here in Groveland, especially with your guidance as to what you want to see here in the future in Groveland. And part of our discussion, we'd love to hear what other communities you know of that you'd like to talk about. I want to also just circle back to the survey. It, as I said, is still ongoing. We would love for you to help us spread the word about it in your groups and amongst your colleagues, amongst other people who live in Groveland, to get people to respond to the survey. That QR code will take you to it if you want to try to bring it up. We'd love to get 10 more responses to the survey today. So, if you haven't taken the survey, do it now. And next we're going to move into, for the next 45 minutes or so, talking with you all about, and by you all I mean the members of these groups, the City Council, Planning and Zoning Board, CRA Board, if there are any here, the Strategic Planning Committee people, and anyone from the Open Space Advisory Group that's here, to find out, your responses to these big questions. I'm going to give you a preview of the 4 questions because I have a sense we'll probably bounce around. So the first question is going to be about level of service. How does it offer ways to better manage growth in the city and get a better yield? And the ear of corn was not really intentional to be an ear, but like the name of the project, but it turned out to be, so that's our ear. Second question is, in your view, what are the most needed infrastructure and housing types in Groveland, and what are the best opportunities for achieving them? The third question is, could impact fees be responsibly further used to reasonably share growth's cost with the development community? And what ideas do you have to implement them judiciously? And the last question is, what new or enhanced public spaces do you want to see in future Groveland, and where? And what characteristics would those places have? Because we can establish policy here that further pushes us in that direction. So I'm going to go back, but I've been talking for way too long. So I would love to give a chance for anyone here at the round table to kick us off with some thoughts about level of service. What have you experienced? What would you like to say to us about policy in the city regarding level of service? What are we looking to achieve? Ms. Gaines.
I think that
Barbara.
level of service, that the level of service provides the opportunity for transparency and accountability. And the last thing I want to say about it is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So with the level of service, again, it will provide accountability and transparency.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You know, just from a level of service standpoint, see the infrastructure being more connected. I think, you know, the police department's growing, the fire department's growing, the parks department needs to grow a little bit more. But I think we need to be connected as a city so the service is equal and everything's placed accordingly so we can be connected. I see us as not being connected from a level of service.
By connected, do you mean physically or sort of operationally? What are you talking about there?
To get around from one part of the city to the other part of the city,
see.
it's not easy.
Got it.
I'm a bike rider, and I think if one part of the city was connected to the other part of the city, and we say we want to do commercial, recreational, and park, put some infrastructure in there, we'd grow economically within our city. I tend to go to Claremont a lot because it's easier to get there, and they offer more from a recreational and commercial standpoint. So that's got to increase.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a thought on it. While I agree with Mrs. Gaines, and Dave said, level of service scares the heck out of me, and I'm saying this to you as a technician because it's a term of art, and I think it's a very old way to look at things. And so what level of service really means is how much do cars slow down in a given area? And what that does is it fails to recognize that slow cars in certain places are very good. So I don't think it looks at nuance, and like in the transportation context, it completely looks, it avoids a more nuanced and modern approach, which is context classification. So I'm a little bit sensitive to the phrase level of service because transportation engineers frequently get it wrong because all they think about is their job and fluidity and that one thing, and they don't look at the holistic approach, which is what Mrs. Gaines and Dave are talking about. So that scares the heck out of me that it's brought up, but I want to at least say it so you technicians are aware of the fact that Tim and his team and then the other people in Groveland have worked really hard at a form-based code. So maybe if you thought about this in what did the new urbanists say? Calibration, like the tuning for the different sections of the transect, what is appropriate in T1 versus T6. So it's calibration more than a level of service. I would just throw that phrase away.
Yeah, I believe
it's
that's already part of that thinking. And so I guess we're
just
fairly
change the
warned.
conversation. Like we're all very progressive and open-minded here. Like they might say that in North Miami Beach, but we don't need to use those phrases. If you want to start a movement.
I'm not here to start a movement. I'm here to reflect what you all want. Thank you for that guidance. Any other thoughts from folks about that? We could move on to the next topic, and we can circle back as you wish as well. So infrastructure and housing types, so that's a broad sweep, talking about all sorts of utility infrastructure and housing needs in Groveland. But when you think about how to achieve that, what comes to mind? What do you recommend for the city to do to accomplish these things, given limited resources and the reliance on the private market. What do you think about, which is really the next question, the impact fee option? I know some people find that to be onerous, or at some point it becomes onerous, but the question is where. Yes, sir.
No, I think, our infrastructure, we are growing at a rapid pace. I think we more have to control the pace. I live in an area where when I first moved in there was 2 developments. Now the entire length of Wilson Lake Parkway has development everywhere. And I think there is some diversity in that because we have some mixed housing in one area. And I think one of the new ones going up has low cost in part of it or affordable in part of it. So when we look at infrastructure, at housing, I'm not seeing the commercial and the retail being able to service our area. And that's where I think the city needs to go out and build a recreation hub, an entertainment hub, to keep the money in the city. When I drive up 561 where Mineola has grown off Hancock Road, there was nothing there originally. Now they're building hubs right across the street there to keep the people there and provide them with services. I don't see that in Groveland. I know we're trying, but I think we need to work harder on supporting the housing infrastructure here. I think it'll continue to move, but we still got to protect the space, the natural charm.
Right. And it should be mentioned, like the synergy that occurs between different kinds of uses being together, not only commercial, retail, restaurants, entertainment, but, civic uses. What are all the reasons that people would come to the town center and have them stay, start at breakfast and then go to the bank and then, meet up with somebody else for a meeting. There are a lot of reasons that people would come to a town center, and if we give them more reasons and create the framework for that to occur, the place will have a life of its own. Yes, Ms. Gaines. Oh. Yes.
Hi, good morning. I'm fairly new to the Groveland area. I moved from Texas, but what I've agreed in the last 2 years that I've been here, it's been so much development, but nothing for the older housing that's here and thankfully would be more available. So I guess more of a question, is there any incentives for people like me that are real estate investors that are able to renovate the current housing and incentivize investors like me to hey, this is if you renovate the downtown area so that we stop demolishing what is the beauty of Groveland and keep the focus inland. There's a lot of housing down by the lake that is perfect for renovating, but to my understanding, there's so many hurdles to renovate those things. And if we were to get incentives from the city, we would go after them in a heartbeat. So.
Well, we can bring all of that to this project. On our team, we have a lot of expertise in downtown redevelopment, economic development, and the kinds of tools that can be used, if not here already, to recommend. I just wanted to mention that we're going to mostly focus on the comments and feedback from the elected and appointed leaders at this time, and we do welcome the public to interact with us, especially after we break out from this and we go to the stations and we have some conversation with you one-on-one. I think that will be a great time for you to get your questions answered more completely. But let me just turn back now to the appointed and elected leaders to get a little bit more feedback on these questions. Now that you've been thinking about it for a few minutes, Ms. Gaines, I think you wanted to say something.
It is nice to have the entertainment centers and art museums or whatever that cities need to have to attract new people or to even get those that have been here for a while out and going. I think that there needs to be a big education program on exactly what affordable housing is. Affordable housing is not slums. Affordable housing is not Section 8. And I made the mistake once of saying affordable housing when I was campaigning, and I almost got ran out of town. So I think that it's important that there be education through communications or through Wildan to let people know exactly what affordable housing is. Because if we have all these other things and people can't afford to live here, it's all for naught. So that's all I'm going to say.
There are different categories of affordable housing that are established by the government, different ranges of income to which it applies, and it spans all the way from those with the least to those with the median income in the area. So programs can be targeted to attract developments that suit those different parts of affordability.
Introduce yourself too while you're on there, because you came out a little late.
My name is Carrie Lambert. I'm with the Planning and Zoning Board. For me, affordable housing means that, for example, I'm a divorced single parent, and when I moved to Groveland, I was looking because of the affordability at the time, being that I had a son who was in middle school, and I wanted a housing where I didn't want to rent, I wanted to own. And so initially I was looking for Orange County, but then I didn't want housing that I had to spend a whole lot of money repairing to my standards. So when I say affordable housing, I'm also talking about people that's like me, that's, single parent. My son is now in college, but, we also need to educate people, like Barbara say, as to there's the financial aspect. People need to know how to save towards down payment, that part, for housing, but the housing market has skyrocketed since I've moved in. I moved in 2019, and when I put down my down payment and everything was in 2018. I had a new build. So the other aspect for those that can't afford a new house is apartments. Affordable apartments could be a part of affordable housing, and ones that's reasonable rent, like not where the rent is like, say, $3,000 or, skyrocket. Income is a big factor when it comes to affordable housing. But that's what I would like. I would like to see other, like women, also could be men who are a single parent that can afford to live in Groveland.
Thank you. And I believe, there's some interest in different housing types that accommodate different household types. There's much more variety in households these days than ever before. So the reality is that we should address that. Okay. Yes, over here. Oh, sorry.
Shoot.
You're right. I think there's a line on this side of the table, just so you know. Yeah.
We need to hear from this side of the table.
So I live one street off of State Road 50, literally one turn off of State Road 50. All day long, in the afternoons, I hear traffic. At night, I could go out there and lay in the middle of the street. There's no traffic. So our biggest traffic issues are during those golden hours, not during the entire day. We can't have flashing lights over here downtown anymore. Now, in 22 years, we bought in one of those established neighborhoods, and according to today's market, I've increased 300% from what I bought it to what it's worth now, supposedly. I joke I'm going to put a $500,000 price tag on it, and if they give it to me, I'm taking it and running. But that's another story. When you talk to the older generations of Groveland, they think we have too much. When you talk to the younger generations of Groveland, they don't think we have anything. I've recently talked with 2 different younger generation city employees in completely different departments who both told me that they can't find apartments to move into the city that they work in. They can't afford it. They can't afford Claremont because it's even more expensive, but there's so much more available in Claremont. We're very limited to our availability. I have senior citizens who have the USDA paperwork, and there's only one apartment complex that I know in the entire city that takes those USDA vouchers. And there's a waiting list. And that's right over here off of South 33, not too far from the church. When it comes to schools, we have all these conversations, we have all these options, and we are a choosing state. Whether you choose private, whether you choose to homeschool, whether you choose charter, or you choose our public schools. We've only grown in one way, and that's by Mascot Charter. A lot of my neighborhood goes to Mascot Charter. We're zoned for Groveland Elementary, but why would I come all the way over here to this side of town so I can be stuck all day in traffic every morning when I could literally walk the other direction and drop my kid off right next to their new park, which is gorgeous, by the way. So on that end, the majority of the things that we've talked about here in Lake County that are coming on the public school end aren't here in Groveland. Yet we give massive amount of money to the public school, and we see very little return on our investment, at least in the past 20 years. So we've had some things repaired amongst the elementary school. You know, they've upgraded. We've had some repairs this year at the high school and the fields, and for permanent restrooms instead of porta potties. Porta potties still at the high school, which is bursting at the seams. So some of our priorities there, I mean, are restrooms important? It goes right back to that infrastructure we're all talking about of a full capacity almost of our wastewater treatment plant. So all of these things have a perspective of who you ask and who you talk to. And everybody will have a comment everywhere in different venues, but obviously not on your survey. But the one thing I must say too, if you notice that crime was nowhere on any of those lists, so that's kudos to our public safety department, because usually in the past, in big cities, number 1 is always crime. Here our number 1 is traffic. Now, does that include public safety in the traffic aspect? Yes. But I mean as a whole and in general. We've increased our service, you know, but we've increased our parks. Some of our older parks are due for renovation and some TLC and some love, but right now we're dealing with how are we going to staff and maintain South Lake Regional Park? Those questions, where's that budget, you know? And then the one big thing too, if on none of these studies, someone mentioned it in the audience, is the historic preservation start. The history was there in Groveland. It was built as a livable, walkable city. That's what thrived. It started with the train depot right here, and hopefully it'll come back to the train depot, because that's definitely a conversation we've been having. So I'd like to see the money stay here. I would gladly leave 10 minutes, 5 minutes every day earlier to keep my tax dollars at home within the city of Groveland.
Those are great reflections, thank you. And there are a lot of opportunities in some of the opportunities around the train station and the downtown development, which could address some of what you're talking about. Yes, sir.
Yep. For question 1 and kind of question 2, level of service, and then also infrastructure. Coming off of a campaign and talking with a ton of people, one of the things I heard the most was walkability. Families don't want their kids walking on 19 or Villa City or 27. But when you talk to them more, you see how unique we are in Groveland, how there's not a one-size-fits-all model. You know, they don't want us to just pave sidewalks all throughout Groveland. They want us to try new and different things. So I think we can, when we're planning all of this, think outside of the box. And for that issue in particular, maybe we do a clay path or a trail and then prove the concept of, is it even being used or not? So I think there's ways that we can think outside of the box and not just do a one-size-fits-all for each thing. Like another community may do this, well, that's not going to work in Groveland because Groveland is unique. And that's not just because we all love Groveland. It's geographically, you can see we're kind of like a web of a city. And then when it comes to development, that was probably the second thing we hear. And anyone who has went out and talked with residents, you hear about, their concerns about development. So when they hear about apartments or they hear about other things, a lot of the residents, what they hear in their mind is traffic and a strain on resources. So, and that's not to say that's right or wrong. I would just keep that in mind when we talk about those things. That's sometimes what is heard on their end.
That's a good point, of course, and we need to always focus on what we're all getting out of it, so that we see what the benefit is for some of the things we're talking about. You touched a little bit on public spaces, and just want to make sure that we do talk about that a little bit. Did I miss anybody over here? Oh, yes.
Does your table want to speak before we continue? Does your table want to speak before we?
Finish it out.
Okay, all right.
Close that file.
Close the thought, okay. So on question 2 there, I guess in my mind, we can dream here about, what would we like? And also we have to live in a world of reality. And so when I read that question, what are the most needed infrastructure and housing types? That's a good question. And also another question is, what is the obligated infrastructure? We have several PUDs that have been approved in the city with no sunset clause. So what are we obligated to? And we need to have a plan for that. And just like all of our personal finances, we only make so much money. And that money's got to take care of the bills before it takes care of the luxury items. And so that's the immediate thought that comes to mind. We need to make sure that we're straight where we need to be.
Before you get to your next point, I just want to mention that it's my impression, talking to the Public Works Department and their consultants, that they are working very actively to calculate this day and night and thinking about what's the best way to go forward in a new way where we're not giving away the whole farm at the outset to one development, phasing and such. Go ahead.
That's good, because we should be. We should be doing that. On the affordability of housing, and impact fees, it's pretty substantial here. The impact fees to build my size of house that I currently live in is what my parents paid for their first house in the 80s. And that's just the impact fees. That's not the other soft costs and whatnot that go into it. So, I believe staff is kind of revisiting what we're doing there on impact. But ultimately, everything does have a cost, right? And the thing that I would like to see improved is that detailed understanding of what is our infrastructure, where is our infrastructure, and have a good engineer at minimum, one on staff full-time, that's helping to get accurate information to developers. I heard someone in the room is an investor, a real estate investor. I work in that field and build. I have a construction, and so I live in that world. And candidly, we looked at building apartments here in Groveland recently, and couldn't get answers on some basic questions, and so we walked away. And that's disappointing for the city because the city needs it. And so I think that we ought to do a better job of communicating clearly and having resources so that as we go out and we try to get commercial investments, as this gentleman stated, there's information to back that up. And Also, from an investment perspective, you need rooftops to bring in commercial investment. You just do. And yes, we're growing at a rapid rate, and also there aren't that many house rooftops here. And so it's hard to, is it the chicken or the egg? What do we bring in first? It's going to take a lot of convincing to bring in high caliber commercial investments when the retail the end users are not there to participate.
Yeah, we may be talking about more incremental change as growth builds upon itself. And I did want to mention, to your point, that it seems like the city is, from my view, becoming rapidly much more sophisticated, and the information is there about what the infrastructure is. But I imagine that from a policy point of view, we could look at what's important about communicating that out and making it clear and understandable to the development community.
Yeah, we need to work on that. First-hand experience. And then lastly, I think that there are ways that we can work together with other with other institutions, I guess is the word to use. Partnering up with Lake County schools to creatively create more parking availability in certain areas, like down here, just down the road, that way. The city and Lake County schools partnering together so that we have parking for all these wonderful events that we do.
You mean shared
street.
parking, basically?
Shared parking. There's a pretty easy way to work all that out. But then also, I know there are people that would be interested in developing this lot across the street. And the response was, well, we might want that for parking. Well, you got this school over here that's not utilized, like, let's build something there so that both the school system and the city can profit. So I think there's some creative solutions that we can look at. Staff is doing a great job with who they have and what they're tackling. So this is not a criticism in any way, just kind of some vision casting of where we could go. And I'll turn that over to Brett.
I want to keep it quick. I love how this question combines infrastructure and housing types, because to get to that housing affordability with a lowercase a, it's really about housing choice. Like right now, what do you have to choose from? A single family home and theoretically garden apartments, but we don't even have garden apartments here. So to answer the infrastructure question, I'll answer it two ways. One, right on the nose, and one more conceptually. To make things affordable and have housing choices, which leads to affordability, because you need different things for different people where they are in their life cycle. Gentle density in a historic downtown area like this really works well. But in order to intensify and fill in the gaps and do some infill, we need stormwater downtown. So like master stormwater, like that's right on the nose, classic infrastructure answer. So you need stormwater everywhere, but you really need it in your places you want to intensify. So that's an easy answer. But the more interesting one, I think, is thinking of infrastructure as a service. So for these types of houses that we don't have, but we know about, that we overuse the phrase missing middle for, but all the other cool things that don't exist, but we can look at them in a book. If we had service as infrastructure so that we had staff, which, as was said a minute ago, we have amazing staff. This is the best jurisdiction that I know of, and I get to work all over the place, and I'm not saying that to aggrandize anything, but if we had like a Pathfinder mentality, like this is how you do a duplex, or this is how you fill in a missing tooth in a downtown area, and that requires not only knowing and I don't mean this pejoratively, but the bureaucracy of dealing with government, as well as having a level of understanding of development, which Tim has, but he's one person. So, and he's got a bunch of hats he has to wear. So if we could take infrastructure as a service, so we can have pathfinders that can help Kim do a thing in Groveland to provide another type of housing that's not just obvious, a national home builder home, or not a big, humongous garden-style apartment building that she needs to be a billionaire to build. I think that would be an interesting way to look at infrastructure.
It's an interesting idea, and I like the way that you are suggesting new language and conceptualizations of how we might work operationally to put forward our best face toward development. Okay, anybody else? I see hands in the audience, but we're gonna save that for when we break from this roundtable, and we'll be glad to take those questions at that time. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Just a few things. First, thanks for all this information. I just took the survey, and I appreciate that. But
Yay!
I want to know where our biggest part of our budget is public safety. Where does public safety fit in this, in the concurrency on public safety? How many fire trucks we have to have, how many police trucks? It's very, very important that we understand, and it's not in the questions on where that stands, and that's our biggest expense. If we need to adjust that, we need to know either up or down. Also, what I see amiss, and I think we talked about it at one of the previous ones, was it's just my personal opinion, but a major responsibility of a government is to make sure the services are available that their citizens need. And there are essential services like healthcare. Where in the concurrency will healthcare come in to, we can't get down 50 at certain times of the day or out all the way 19 to 27 for the people west of 19. It's just an issue. And I think that should be addressed in some way because you're asking for people to prioritize stuff. I would love to find out where education and healthcare come in as opposed to parks and recreation.
Yes, I should address, and I should have said at the outset that I have not included all areas of the comprehensive plan here today. I focused in on those things that came up most strongly in the community feedback as well as conversations with staff. But for sure, there's a whole public facilities section of the plan devoted to public safety, and I've interviewed the fire chief and his deputy and the police chief and his deputy, and had great conversations about that. We know that there's been recent investment in those departments and facilities, and the sense is that the greatest potential issue that came out of those conversations, from my view, was the water distribution for fire safety, having reliable flow for fighting fires. But of course, it's like half the budget of the city, so yes, it's absolutely, absolutely key. And then the other issue you raised is about healthcare, and I know that even on a county level, access to healthcare is a concern in their planning processes, and that's something which I guess we don't have a standalone for that. Some cities do actually put a standalone element for health issues, but I think probably in this case we probably fold it into our discussions about economic development and how do we bring those resources to the city, distribute them more equitably, and of course many partnerships would be required with institutions and with private sector organizations to make that happen the way you might like to see it.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. And along that, the healthcare, the way the city could participate is by land availability. Most of the people we're talking to want the land to build the hospital on because it's so expensive. So in that, and also in the fire, where I'm talking about concurrency, when we get Villa City in with 7,500 homes, I know I've heard that there's another fire station that'll need to be, and as we keep adding, we need to know when those triggers are going to hit, because heaven knows what that's going to cost, but we need to be prepared for it and reserve for that out of impact fees, so impact fees don't go somewhere else, and then we have to go borrow that money. The next thing I had is based on the strategic plan committee, I'd love to, and Mr. Maslow, our land use plan is very important, and I don't know if it needs to be changed, but the way that land use plan was put together, is the way I interpreted it, was we would have developments, and within each of these developments we would have commercial. So we kept people off of 19 and 27, and those commercial areas would be the necessities that community would need. We have yet to see that. And we seem to let developers come in and develop the space. And I know there's issues with rooftops. Well, you judge the commercial capacity by the amount of rooftops you have in your community. And we need to have that re-examined, and we need to make sure that that is in lockstep with when these developments go up, because we just keep putting people on traffic on 19. And so in the concurrency plan, if there's any way that we can make that an issue for the developers to live up to the whole land use plan, that would be very good. And if not, because I know there's some, Celebration has closed down their town center, and places we've used is one in Windermere, or he closed them down. If we have to revisit that to keep people off the road, it needs to be in here, in this plan. But those are just a few. I really, agriculture comes along, and I know in the strategic plan, we had a conservation and agricultural specialist together so that we would be able to incentivize and attract more agriculture. I think we're very heavy on one side and haven't done anything on the other. So I would say that go back to our strategic plan, and because it does say medical village. It does say everything we're talking about is in that plan. We just have kind of picked one way to go, and we need to get in these other areas. That's where I think the public needs to
all
weigh
aspects
in.
of the strategic plan we're going to fold into the policy document.
I think that's your question, Karen, is in your survey, where would you like your money spent? That's very different than which one is the highest priority in your mind. Where do you want your money spent? Do you want it spent to get health care? Do you want it spent to get a park? Do you want it spent to get parking? Do you want it spent to... And when I was campaigning, that's what I asked, and I got a heck of a lot different answers than, I want a pickleball court, I want this or that, it became very, very much more realistic. How do you want your money spent?
Words are very important. I want to be a little mindful of the time because we're almost to the end of our event, but is there anybody at the table who didn't speak yet who might want to share anything before we break and go to sort of informal conversations with the public?
Excuse me, I'm not being disrespectful, but my understanding was that the citizens came, they could hear, and they might have a say. And I respect the time slot, and that's probably why that was arranged this way. But I personally, when I have been in a meeting, and we have gone to these planning things, and when I have gone to one of the little stations, my hometown, I grew up in Groveland, my hometown questions aren't being answered because, and one thing was the Cherry Lake thing, and all due respect to the representative, I had a deep concern for where was Highway 19 on their little map, and the person that was representing didn't even know what I was talking about. And I don't want to take the floor, but I just want to say one thing. This gentleman here had it right on the nose. I grew up here in Groveland. I was in here in the 70s. Everybody, I was a teenager then, everybody was focused on the main business was our blessed B&W juice plant, our citrus business. A lot of the people that were adults and property owners here had the citrus groves that are no longer here that these houses were being built upon. But the one thing I just want to say is, as a teenager, there was nothing for us. You had to go to Orlando. There was nothing for our future. My friends that graduated, we didn't have the selection that these young people are blessed with now. You were either an attorney, okay, you had to go somewhere else. If you were, you could be a secretary, you could be whatever, but you had to go somewhere else unless, now my family did not, but my husband's family worked right there at B&W. And then the freezes came. And you know the story of that. But one thing that is true to history for Groveland, and my mom was Marion Basinger. If you're familiar with the library, it was named after her, okay? but my parents were really involved in the community. They had the Teen Way, if you've heard about it, the Historic Society has been trying to have the soft hops to commemorate the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so forth. Well, my parents, Bob and Mary Basinger, spent Saturday nights going down there to have something for the youth of Groveland to do. My mom always said, and I remember, you had to be 12 years old to go there. I was there since I was 4, manning and helping out. We grew up, and I was looking forward to being 12 so I could officially be a member of the Teen Way. But when I got 12, my mom always said, when the parents in the 60s gave their keys to their kids to drive to Colonial Mall, if you're familiar with the old Colonial Mall in Orlando, I found out that was the very first mall in our area in Orlando. So what happened to Teen Way? Parents were giving their kids the keys to their car, driving to Orlando. We still had the drive-in here in Claremont, but that was no longer. Bevel's Corner in Sumter County was the drive-in. That's where we all went. Not all of us could go to Orlando, but that was the history and kind of the downfall for Groveland. You had people going, the businesses going, the money going to Orlando. Leesburg was struggling. They couldn't keep up because of Orlando. So then what did we do? We left. I've always wanted to get out of Dodge. I've always wanted to get out of Groveland, but I'm here. My family heritage, and I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I need to break in a minute here.
My family heritage is here, and it's worth staying in Groveland, and I welcome all of you new residents for wanting to be here in Groveland, and it's worth fighting for the history, the downtown, everything. And I thank you for these moments. I didn't mean to take this time, but I guess I just needed to say what I needed to say, and I'm sorry, gentlemen, if I took your time.
Thank you for your passion, and yes, I think we're aiming to fold in what the legacy of Groveland is into the present process. So to the extent we can do that, we do want to hear from you. But I do want to make sure, of course, that everybody has a chance to interact with the leaders, the staff, the consultant team. So I think unless there's anything else from the group at the round table, I'd like to suggest that we close that portion and move on to just informal discussion here in the room. We're not going to have it in group like this. We're going to just break up and have.
Way more beneficial, because we're not all going to the station. Right. I have an interest in what Keith has to say. I'm not going to follow him to each little station to find out what he has to say. Stephen might have an interest in what Keith has to say. So I think sitting here and having the public say what they have to say, some of us took our vacation days to be here for this. Some of us take time out of our days. So walking from station to station is really not going to help us know what he has to say. And just like Shem said, I stood at some of these things and said something. I was given a BS story of how this is going to help. It really wasn't. I'm in transportation. The answer I was given is not going to alleviate any of our transportation.
Okay. Yeah.
I think many of us in the room probably do. I understand. And
This event was not planned in that way. We didn't design it this way, but I guess I'm going to defer to the staff.
Carla, just to interject, out of respect and appreciation for the public attending the meeting, and what we said the very beginning of the meeting is we'd have an authentic conversation.
We sure did.
So let's just give them the floor, and we do have until I think 12 noon to be here, and I would just politely request everybody to make your comments, but allow enough time for everybody to make your comments. So I'll just pass the microphone, and if you'd like to go first, or you got it, and feel free to pass it around. And again, that's why we're here, is to get your feedback.
Okay, I'm Keith Breedlove. I live in Trilogy, District 4, beautiful place. And yes, Wilson Lake Parkway is getting kind of full. I have a question. It's going to be directed towards Zach, but I wanted everybody else to hear it because it has to do with impact fees. We hear about impact fees. The city gives discounts on impact fees, but impact fees should pay for growth, okay? Every time the city gives a discount on the impact fees, that means we, who are already here, are paying for infrastructure and so forth that we may not even benefit from. So the question I have for you, Zach, as a developer, how important is it to have low impact fees, or does it matter since you're really just a pass-through to the eventual buyer? Thanks.
Can I go ahead and answer that question? So I'll give you a point of reference. I looked at developing, I think it was 52 apartment units here, and the impact fees was over $1 million, just impact for like a couple of acre parcel over here. So I'm not saying, I fully agree that developers should pay for the impact that they have, but we have to live in a world of a reality that things have costs. Yes, you have costs at your home, as do I. And so I understand, I sympathize, much like Carrie, like I probably couldn't buy the house that I live in today at what its value is today. I raise the concern because people often say affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. As you just said, those costs get passed to the end user. So which is it? Are we a city that's trying and doing everything possible to make affordable housing? Well, if so, we've got to reduce the costs to get there. And by doing that, money has to come from somewhere, right, Mayor? So if you get rid of impact fees, well, you're going to have to collect that revenue someplace else. And so I'm not arguing for or against impact fees. I'm just trying to inform people that, they don't have a dollar figure in their mind of what impact fees really are. I think the calculation to build my house, which is only 1,700 square feet, is about $30,000 in impact fees. So that's a big chunk of change to most people. And I think the people should be aware when they keep asking for affordable housing what the real costs are. Because I hear, we want affordable housing and the developers should pay for everything. And that's just what it is.
Zach, is there more creative way where developers could designate a certain amount of their development for affordable housing to come in and we work with them there? The problem with reducing impact fees, as I've been very vocal about it, is the city has to make up that money out of the general fund or out of the CRA fund or somewhere. For instance, the water and sewer is $13,000 of the $15,000 impact fee, so $6,500. If we give somebody half off on their wastewater on impact fee, the city has to come up with that time, 6,500 times how many units, and that comes out of the city. And so I'm sorry that we're in the position we're in. It's because we're so far behind on the infrastructure. We got this plant going here. We got another one slated to be built for $119 million out here, and that doesn't even take into consideration Villa City, which is going to have another one. So we're in a situation where either they pay for growth or they pay for growth, and as we have less and less land, land is not a commodity, it's a fixed resource. The value of that land goes up, and we'll see how that works out. But I think there's got to be some kind of partnership for people to get there, rather than reducing impact fees, some kind of partnership that can help people out on the side that doesn't cost us a lot of money.
Yes, sir, in the blue shirt.
When I was in Wichita, the impact fees were laid out as a separate tax to the homeowner when he purchases his property, and it was paid over like 5 years. So he didn't get hit all at once when the developer sold the property. He ended up with two things to pay. He paid his mortgage, and then he paid part of his impact fee over 5 years. And that seemed to be not a nice way for the buyer overall, but it got a split of it so it doesn't hit him all at once. Because when you do buy the house, you'll end up with paying the impact fees as part of your purchase price. So it could make it more affordable. That's just a thought where it was done elsewhere.
I want to respect that the public is asked to speak more, so I'm trying to limit my responses. But I'm happy to speak further after. And to the mayor's point and to your point, there are creative solutions here. And also, at the end of the day, even in the scenario that you just laid out, the homeowner is still paying the bill. And, you know, it still makes its way there. And so how do you bring costs down? You get economy of scale, right? So it's going to be cheaper overall to build a very large apartment complex than it would be to do the infill development that we're talking about. I'm not advocating for one or the other. I'm just sharing my perspective because I know what things cost. I live in that world, and you know, everyone wants to get it cheaper. If you could buy the house for $200,000, same house for $200,000 or $150,000, which would you choose? $150,000, right? And so it takes working together is all I'm saying. I don't have any solutions to present now because this wasn't a talking point that I was going to be fielding questions on.
I want to present a counterpoint to that economy of scale comment. So the counterpoint or the alternative is to actually create a testing ground where you have all these beta tests of different models competing against each other. So not just the one side, you know, the bigger is better economy of scale, everything we're all taught in macroeconomics. But if you have these models where you do have that big project, but then you have a small guy, because my experience in getting to talk to everybody about their secrets, because I'm a lawyer, is that some of these smaller guys actually can run a leaner business model and they can actually deliver products not at an economy of scale but at a lower price point, and they have to because they don't have a big marketing department that has big sexy marketing flyers and flapping flags of, you know, mediocrity, so they have to build a slightly better product. So I think the beta tests and different things is an alternative. I'm not saying it's right, but what's interesting, going back to what the mayor said, is a couple of minutes ago, you made the comment about making sure these commercial, neighborhood commercial and other types of commercial are embedded in the neighborhoods. Another thing that's in the code is these different sizes. And so the way that you get those different price points is in these neighborhoods, you have small, medium, and large, and then even chop that up, like as one of the slides showed, or somebody's slide, I don't know who it was earlier, like if it's over, 40 acres, you need 5 different housing typologies, sizes. So those are different price points. So we have that. We just need it to play out. Part of the problem that we have in Groveland is we have all these old PUDs from 20 years ago that a lot of the new code is just not legally applicable. So we try to lever people into doing the right thing, but it's tough.
There are things that you can do on the city and a county level to try to get those. There are things that you can do on the city or the county level. As a city, we know exactly what we want, and we want maybe smaller builders to come in. There are cities that have their planning department has planned the exact type of house or plans that they want, and then smaller builders can come in and take those pre-approved plans and move forward with them. So then you're not just having, you know, the builders that can build 700 homes. You may have a mom and pop company that can come in and build 1 or 2 or 3 homes, and it's expedited because it's already been approved and it is exactly what we want. You know, maybe it has a front porch, maybe it has more or less space, but we've already designed it, we've already approved what the plans would be, and then the builder, like you had said, comes in and you may want to build something. You don't have to have questions. You could take one of those pre-designed concepts and take it to fruition. But I also want to be mindful. I can stay late, and I don't know if some other members can, so we can get through all of everyone's public comment. But I know that the vice mayor is looking at me and about to throw something, so she may have a comment, and then we can go back to just going in a line and getting everybody's comments.
Yes, Ms. Gaines.
Okay, when I talk about affordable housing, I get the impression that there's doom and gloom around the affordable housing. When I'm talking about affordable housing, I am talking about in accordance, not what I think, not what I feel, not what I would like to see, but I am talking about in accordance with the federal guidelines for affordable housing. If you're spending more than 30% of your income, Houston, we got a problem. Now, we have a problem. It's not going to go away. Again, none of us is as smart as all of us. So how do we fix it so that those that can't afford above the 30%, how do we fix it where they too can live and be inclusive here and spend their money here? I'm crazy enough to believe that it can be done. So we have just got to look at it. Don't look at what can't be done. Let's look at it as to how it can be done. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Okay, here in the yellow shirt. Oh, I'm sorry. Here comes the mic.
Not to beat the dead drum on renovating properties, but the tree hugger in me, that's one of the reasons why I moved to Groveland. It's beauty, all the nature that's around, and in the last 2 years, developments don't stop. I live off of the 33, and there's a butt ton of development going on over there. So going back to here is, can the current infrastructure sustain what's already happening? What is the growth rate? And I'll go back as, can the city provide incentives so that single parents can afford to buy their own property, renovate it? So one of the things about my military background, Italy, you can buy properties for cheap on the dime, dollar properties, right? And people can go and invest in those properties and make them their own properties. We don't need more development. There's no such thing as shortage, a housing shortage. There is a greed abundance. So how can we incentivize the people in Groveland to take those properties and renovate those properties so then they can generate income from those properties as well? We don't need more housing developments. We need to beautify what already exists. So what's Groveland's current sustainability plan? Do we really want the rapid growth rate that's happening in Groveland, or do we want to maintain the beauty that exists in this infrastructure already and incentivize the local people that are here to go after those properties, renovate them, and be able to keep them for themselves, for their generational wealth?
Yes, that's a really good point. And the plan will have the opportunity to address needs for introducing programs to work with the community to study it and find ways to accomplish that if it doesn't already exist. So yes, we can use this policy document to look at that. Yes, sir.
Will that plan give high priority to the concurrency plan? Because if you have a weak concurrency plan, you're going to have more traffic issues, more water supply issues, less police, less fire, which means a less response time, and you're going to be in the same situation. I assume the concurrency plan wasn't really strong in the past, and that's why you have a lot of these issues. And then in addition to that, the impact fee discussion, along with the concurrency plan, there's other places like Port Orange. They have a fair share proportional plan on top of the impact, but they do it in a way where big developers, you can take some of that funding and use it specifically for one project in the city. Or Volusia County has the same thing. Jacksonville has a mobility transportation plan. And some of those, they actually have the developer provide their private funds, their private land, and their private construction to do special city projects. So these are some, creative ways that other places in the state have done, and that would help. But in my mind, concurrency plan has to be at the very top of that, or else you stay stuck in this situation.
I think we on the team are feeling very similarly. There is a concurrency management chapter of the plan, and we'll be focusing a great deal of attention on that based on all these discussions.
Just to add to that, the current Groveland plan says like the developer in two parts of it has up to 3 years after the certificate of occupancy is given to complete their concurrency project. Other places like Port Orange, you have to have that project done when they issue the certificate of occupancy. And in addition to that, Some of these places charge bonds up front. I don't know if Groveland has bonds in place in case the developer goes defunct or leaves, whatever, but some tightening up of that might help.
The certificate of occupancy is a key moment in time because after that you lose a lot of control over what happens. Certainly, in one of the examples I shared in Pompano Beach, we chose actions that could be taken before the certificate of occupancy for that purpose. And I thank you for mentioning best practices, Port Orange, Volusia County, and Jacksonville. Maybe we'll write that down. Anybody else have something to share?
I think everyone continues to talk about walkability, and I guess my question to you all will be with what really is walkability to the residents of Groveland? We speak about 19. Let's be honest. People live on 19. Is there money in our finances to go and buy their property? Do they want the road that much closer to their front door? No, they don't. Therefore, 19 is not going to be walkable. 50, it's not going anywhere. Everyone talks about, oh, Claremont has walkability. Winter Garden has walkability. You know what they don't have? State Road 50 going through their downtown. It's not going away. The bypass, it's great. It's going to take a couple of semis off the road. It's not going to solve the problem. So as we talk about walkability, I guess what is walkability? Where do they want walkability? Why are we not utilizing 27 more? We have a lot of empty space up on 27. Why is our city hall downtown in the corner of nothing when our city hall could be up there on 27? Why are we not utilizing more open area that we have?
Anybody from the group have some thoughts? You got to go.
But that's kind of what I was speaking about before is walkability and this has to be a unique process. We can't just have one speed limit through all of Groveland. Same thing with walkability. It may not be actually a sidewalk on 19, it might be a trail behind homes, or we make certain concessions with different builders or developers on how people can get from point A to point B, but it's not going to be a sidewalk on 19. It may be a different way, and I think the more input we have and the more different ways of saying, hey, this is unique, how can we get people from point A to point B? When it comes to 27, that's a huge opportunity up there where we could develop more like another area. We can't be Winter Garden, but if we come in and we say, hey, we could plan this out and have an actual strategic plan for it, that may look a lot different than what 50 currently looks like, because we could literally lay it out exactly how the residents may want it to be.
I'm definitely hearing a lot about creative solutions being needed and partnerships that help to bring out solutions we might not have thought of. Anybody else want to speak from the audience, from the public? Any other comments? Any other thoughts from the assembled leaders here?
Yes, just one.
Yes, sir.
I think I don't want to get us mixed up on connectivity and walkability. I think they're two different things, and connectivity is a major part of our strategic plan. Because when you look at our land use plan, again, I don't know if we need to relook at it, but these town centers are the center of commerce and high density. And then as you go out, you get to the village, and as you go out, you get to agriculture. And it's not one town like that. It's all these smaller hamlets and things. So how are those connected? Are you going to walk from one hamlet to another? I don't know, but walkability was to make sure everybody could get to downtown center. So we're 35,000 acres. That's bigger than the whole property at Disney World. And to have all that connected so you could walk, I don't know if that's going to be a practical thing. And also we have all the waterways and things that kind of give us different sections of town that may be, I'm a big fan of, like New Orleans, have a warehouse district, have an entertainment district, have a whatever, and have those districts kind of identify themselves. But walkability is a major component, but connectivity is even more. How we connect them, and today with golf carts and all that kind of stuff, you can get creative with that. But appreciate that. Really good conversation. We should You all should come to the meetings more often. I'm going to scold you a little bit because we could get a lot more done with this kind of input. Is amazing, you know. It's absolutely amazing.
We're glad to hear you speak. And yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Huh. I wonder if maybe it expired. Well, it's definitely there.
Opened it right up. Okay.
I tried it 3 times and it gave me the same error message. I can show you the screenshot. Well, he showed me this too.
I got it off the screen and they pulled it off the page.
Oh, yeah, off the screen it wasn't working. Oh, okay.
That probably needs to be updated. My apologies. Yes. Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay.
Just to wrap it up, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Again, we said authentic conversation. We have to have these hard conversations and be real with each other. Part of our job is going back, working with Carla and the consultant team. I have a full page of notes that are really all over the place. Our job is to thread the needle the best we can, and it's going to be challenging. There's a lot of real challenges here in the city in terms of resources and various objectives, you know, weighing the differences and cost benefit of affordable housing, impact fees, growth, budgeting, et cetera. But I'm confident. I think we have some ideas. This helps us in terms of idea generation, and be ready. We'll put out some more meeting dates as part of this process to let you know, hey, this is what we heard at the last meeting. This is what we did about it. Here's some ideas. Ultimately, this will have to go through our Planning and Zoning Board, and then our City Council meeting for 2 public hearings at the end of the process. But by the end of April, we expect to have a new comprehensive plan that reflects these conversations. That's the goal. So again, thanks everybody for being here. Mr. Mayor, did you have any other closing remarks?
Yeah, I have a closing remark. We have committees coming up. I think we have openings on P&Z, we have openings on RAC, we have openings on all these committees. Please, this is the kind of dialogue and things we should be having at the meetings, real debate. And please look on our online, because you have to go to our website to figure it out. But you guys need to get involved and have these conversations, because if we have single generations in these committees, then we get single generation output, and we need to have all of you participate. Please participate and get on some of these committees. Thank you for being here.
Yes, and we also, I'll just mention that tomorrow evening, we will also briefly be at the neighborhood huddle with the mayor. So we'll have another opportunity to engage with the public there and get more feedback. That's our goal. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the public. Thank you to the committees and the boards.